You're probably getting this question all the time: is what the heck is going on in our housing market?
What the heck is going on? Well, a number of things are happening, and it's actually something that started last year and has now been accelerated because of interest rates. So the minute interest rates started rising above 3.1%, which was the last week of December for Freddie Mac, the acceleration of that cost buyers has pulled out the traditional home buyer more so than they already were pushed out after we dropped below the affordability measures, traditional affordability measures of Greater Phoenix in June of last year. So June of last year, we kind of said, this is going to get risky for investors because the minute you can't flip that home to somebody who can afford it, or you can't rent that home to somebody who can afford it, what the risk is to you is at some point we're going to see a diminished return. Okay. So investors took over or started to take over a lot of the market share, and regular owners, owner occupants were pushed out per the affidavit value that's recorded here in Arizona. Normal percentages were about 70 to 75%, 76, somewhere in there for owner occupant. By the end of last year, that number was 64%, and by April, it was 62%. And so that means that they have not been in the driver's seat, really.
hmm
And the risk factor, again, who's been pushing prices up? Investors. And so investors are who have been taking on that risk. And the risk is not necessarily of loss for those who have purchased, say, before 6 months ago. It's really more of a less than desirable return.
Yeah.
So she's talking about home appreciation, so
Mhm.
future value.
Yes. So future value basically based off of last year's purchases. So what we're seeing now is much of the supply increases that have happened, most of them are being spurred by investors and builders. So builders who did not have a need for the MLS literally 3 or 4 months ago are now finding that their demand has diminished to the point that they are now putting their new homes into the MLS. So
Do
that's
you
part of
do you know
it.
how many of those 14,000 are from the builders?
I don't have the number exactly, but I know they went from about 11% of listings, which would be your luxury new homes,
hmm
were always in there, to about 13%
Yeah.
of the overall market share of active listings. The other part is uh, about 10% iBuyer, which means open door and offer pad. They have seen a massive acceleration
Yeah.
in what they have active versus how many are actually under
Well, they said they
contract.
wanted to dominate the market, and I think
Yeah.
they've succeeded in dominating the
Congratulations.
listings.
Yes. And then you have another aspect of it, which are the second homeowners, the LLCs. If we just look at LLCs, which, by the way, are not necessarily institutions, because
hmm
I have an LLC, I'm sure many people do. So just because it's an LLC doesn't mean that it's an institution, but we do see about another 15% rentals.
Yeah.
So what we're essentially, long story short, we're seeing a lot of investors dominating the supply.
hmm
They are the ones that are feeling it the most.
Yeah.
Regular homeowners are the least affected by this right now.
It's interesting. You said like a lot of the funds or whatever they're buying these houses. I had a chance to go to the IMN conference, and all these fund CEOs right are on stage, and they're talking about what they're doing, what their plans are for the future, and the reason why they can pay these outrageous prices.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that they said on stage that really shocked me was they made the bold claim that the American dream is over. Right, the American dream of owning homes is over. Like we're gonna be like Europe, in 5 to 10 years. I thought that was a pretty bold statement. Lizy, what are you seeing?
Well, hi everyone. Super happy to be here. We are definitely seeing a market shift. I do want to just say that it is a cyclical thing that happens all the time in every type of investment, stock market, real estate market, economies. And so it isn't something to be super fearful of. I know that in my childhood, I had my parents talking about their fears of their parents' fears of the Great Depression. And what we are experiencing right now with everyone talking about housing crashes and a real estate crisis is PTSD from the Great Recession. So I just want to start off and say, yes, like as somebody who's works in real estate, I am definitely seeing a shift. We are down in mortgage applications. Interest rates have risen 2.5% since the beginning of the year, which is, that means like a buyer who's looking at, getting the same monthly payment has lost about 25% of their purchasing power. So we're seeing a significant impact in the number of applications and closings. But for me, as somebody who's worked in this industry for 20 years, I've seen this happen multiple times in my career, and there's nothing that leads me to believe that we are on the precipice of a housing crash. And I just want to state, like, because, one of the comments that I made earlier was like, hey, this is what she's talking about, is that there's a lot of information being thrown out there about values, and a home value is very different than a market price. And a market price is set by real estate agents that have opinions anywhere between 5 and 20% different, depending on the agent that you talk to and the comparables that they are researching, in what they believe they're going to price that home for and what a consumer is willing to pay to get that home today. So a year ago, people were willing to pay over 100% of a listing price to buy a home. Today, like, I'm seeing more people buy like 90%, 97%. A lot of times they're paying list price. Like, I'm not seeing these dramatic price reductions. And there's still a substantial amount of people, due to the increases in wages and the strong employment, that can still afford homes. Like, one other clarification I'd really like to make is that the affordable housing issue that people are talking about isn't necessarily like that there aren't enough people that can afford the American dream. It's that there isn't enough lower priced houses for people that make under the median income. So we do have a problem in, like, is there affordable houses,
Mm-hmm.
right? But can people still buy houses? Absolutely. And they're still buying them at 6% interest rates.